It's official. Dune Part 3 is on the way, and it promises to be the epic conclusion of Denis Villeneuve's sci-fi saga. Ever since Dune 2021 wowed audiences and Dune Part 2 continued the story, fans have been eager to see how Paul Atreides' journey will end. With Part 2 earning a critical acclaim and over $700 million globally, the studio wasted no time greenlighting a third installment. Now, we're diving into everything we know about Dune Part 3, from its production and returning cast to plot hints and behind-the-scenes details. To get a full picture of the highly anticipated finale, grab your stillsuit and stay tuned, because the spice must flow. After the success of the first film, director Denis Villeneuve made it clear he envisioned a trilogy completing Paul Atreides' story, with Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah novel as the basis for the third movie. Once Dune Part 2 was confirmed in late 2021, Villeneuve openly discussed his hope to adapt Messiah as the next chapter. By March 2022, co-writer John Spates also confirmed the plans for a third film were on the table. Fast forward to 2023, Villeneuve had begun drafting ideas for Part 3 even before Part 2 hit theaters, saying there was already words on paper and confirming it would likely be the final film in his Dune series, set 12 years after the previous events. Originally, Villeneuve thought he might take a break and direct a different project back, as he admitted he was exhausted after filming Part 1 and 2 back-to-back. However, the rapturous reception of Part 2 changed that. In early 2025, he revealed that seeing Part 2 embraced by audiences worldwide gave him an appetite and a desire to see more and responsibility to finish the story. So he jumped straight into Dune Part 3 as his next film. Studio support quickly followed. By April 2024, Legendary Pictures and Villeneuve confirmed that the third film was in active development. Warner Brothers even staked out a release date, December 18, 2026. At the time, they didn't explicitly say Dune, but industry reports made it clear this date was reserved for Villeneuve's next Dune installment. Sure enough, as pre-production ramped up, Villeneuve finished the script by the end of 2023 and continued fine-tuning it into 2024, determined to make Part 3 superior to Part 2 in quality. This was confirmed in July 2025 when Warner Brothers unveiled the title along with a first-look image and reiterated the release date. The decision to stick with the number of Part 3 naming was made for continuity and branding, avoiding confusion for viewers who might not know the novels. Some fans were a bit disappointed, feeling that Messiah would have been a bolder title, but the consensus is that a line with Parts 1 and 2 makes the trilogy feel cohesive. Villeneuve has confirmed that this was or will be his last film in the Dune saga, completing the trilogy and Paul's story. Despite the tight timeline, the director is optimistic. He cheekily told Vanity Fair when asked about tackling the 12-year time jump between films, "That's my problem. I know how to do that." By October 2024, Villeneuve hinted that production might start sooner than he initially expected, and indeed it did, beginning much earlier in 2025 rather than 2026. As cameras rolled, the official Dune social media shared a teaser image of sweeping red-hued desert dunes under a stormy sky, signaling a return to Arrakis, and that production was in full swing. Filming is expected to continue through late 2025, giving the team all of 2026 for the extensive post-production and visual effects works required for the massive sci-fi epic. One of the most exciting aspects of Dune Part 3 is seeing which characters return and who joins the saga for the first time. Villeneuve's finale is bringing back all the key players who survived the events of Dune Part 2 and introducing some major new figures from Herbert's Dune Messiah novel. Timothée Chalamet will of course reprise his role as Paul Atreides, now the Emperor Muad'Dib and focal point of the story. By his side is Zendaya as Chani, the Fremen warrior who is Paul's love and partner. Florence Pugh returns as Princess Irulan Corrino, daughter of the deposed Emperor and now Paul's imperial consort. We can expect Irulan's role to grow in Part 3 as she becomes a political ally and potential adversary in Paul's court. And, a surprise to many fans, but not to the loyal, true Dune fans, fan favorite Jason Momoa is making a surprise comeback as Duncan Idaho, or maybe somebody else. And yes, the same Duncan who heroically died in Part 1. How is that possible? Book readers know the secret. Duncan returns as a Gola, a resurrected clone with restored memories. In Dune Messiah, Momoa himself couldn't contain his excitement, cheekily teasing, "I'm making a comeback." If you didn't read the books, it's not my fault, right? His return was officially confirmed, so audiences will finally see that Duncan's second life means something in Paul's story. Javier Bardem is expected back as Stilgar, the stalwart Fremen leader and Paul's loyal friend who helped him rise to power. Another likely return is Charlotte Rampling as Reverend Mother and Gaius Helen Mohiam, the Bene Gesserit elder. In the novel, Mohiam plays a covert role in the conspiracy against Paul, so Rampling's character could have a significant scene or scenes if they stick to that plotline. She survived Part 2, so it's very plausible she'll reappear. Meanwhile, Christopher Walker's Emperor Shaddam IV and his court, introduced in Part 2, have presumably been exiled after Paul's conquest, so Walken's role may be done. We don't expect to see much of the former Emperor in Part 3 since his downfall has already occurred. The Atreides family members who are still alive at the end of Part 2 present an interesting case. Josh Brolin, of course, has portrayed the weapons master Gurney Halleck, and Rebecca Ferguson is Paul's mother, Lady Jessica. In Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah, neither Gurney nor Jessica is actively involved in the main events. Jessica is off-world and Gurney is said to be on Caladan during that period. Early reports have suggested we may not see Gurney or Jessica in Part 3. Brolin himself lightheartedly confirmed that his role is minimal. He joked that people kept asking why he wasn't on set, and his answer was, "Dude, read the script." He has filmed a small appearance, so Gurney will show up, at least briefly, but also agreed that Gurney does not appear much in Dune 3. In other words, expect perhaps a cameo or a short scene with Gurney, wrapping up his character. Lady Jessica, on the other hand, may not appear at all in this time around, which would align with her limited involvement during this part of the story. If she's absent, they'll likely explain that Jessica returned to the Bene Gesserit or is simply away from Arrakis. Now on to the new characters, and there are some big ones coming. The most significant is Alia Atreides, Paul's younger sister. Alia was actually born at the end of Part 2. Jessica was pregnant during the wars in the novels, but the film chose not to highlight her birth yet. Instead, Dune Part 2 included a subtle cameo of Alia in the visionary sequence portrayed by Anya Taylor-Joy. Eagle-eyed viewers may have missed this blink and you'll miss it tease, but it's been confirmed by the cinematographer that Taylor-Joy appeared as Alia in Dream of Paul's. This was essentially laying the groundwork for Part 3. Anya Taylor-Joy is expected to take on a much larger role in Dune Part 3 as Alia, who by the 12-year time jump will be a young woman with extraordinary abilities. Taylor-Joy has already expressed enthusiasm, saying she's ready to dive into Alia's complex character when the time comes. Alia is a huge figure in Dune Messiah, born with the full awareness and knowledge of Reverend Mother. She's unpredictable and powerful. Villeneuve held off fully introducing her to build anticipation for a role that fits Taylor-Joy's surreal, otherworldly screen presence like a still suit, as one report put it. In Part 3, Alia will be at Paul's side in Arrakis, and we can expect her to be both an ally and possibly a wild card as events unfold. Also joining the cast are Paul and Chani's children. That's right, the third film will feature the next generation of Atreides. In Dune Messiah, Chani becomes pregnant, and, this is a spoiler, she gives birth to twins. Those twins are Leto II and Ghanima Atreides, and they have now been cast for the film. In a big casting reveal, it was announced that Nakoa Wolf Momoa, Jason Momoa's real-life son, will play Leto II, and young actress Ida Brooks will play Ghanima. This marks Nakoa Wolf's film debut, and interestingly, he'll be acting alongside his father since Jason Momoa is back as Duncan Idaho. He'll share the screen with his son in the universe. According to Deadline, these twins are born after the events of the original Frank Herbert novel, meaning their birth will likely occur during Part 3. In the book, they are newborn infants by the end, but the casting has raised some eyebrows because the actors cast are teenagers, Nicole Wolf being 15, 16 years old, and Ida Brooks also in her late teens. This has led to speculation that Villeneuve might show the twins either in a time jump epilogue or in prophetic visions as older children. It's possible the film could briefly fast forward beyond the main timeline, or simply use the older actors to play slightly younger. We'll have to see how they handle this. In any case, the inclusion of Leto II and Ghanima confirms that Paul and Chani's family will be a central point to the plot, in fact, even hinted by Deadline which noted Part 3 will explore the consequences of Paul's reign and the future of his bloodline. Now on to the villain side of the casting. One major new antagonist is coming straight from the novel, Scytale, a face dancer of the Bene Phylaxu. Scytale is a shape-shifting assassin and part of the conspiracy against Paul. Reports in spring of 2025 indicate that Robert Pattinson was being eyed for the villainous role. By April 2025, multiple outlets said Pattinson was in talks to join the cast as Scytale. This hasn't been formally announced by the studio yet, but it gained more credibility when Pattinson was actually spotted in Budapest during filming alongside other cast members. In late July 2025, local media in Hungary observed Pattinson on location with the team, strongly suggesting he is part of the film. If and when confirmed, Pattinson's casting is exciting news. He'd bring charisma to the role of Scytale, who is a cunning, mysterious villain able to disguise himself. In the story, Scytale represents the Bene Phylaxu's faction's agenda, and having an A-list actor like Pattinson in the part will give that storyline plenty of weight. As an aside, Pattinson's involvement had to be timed carefully since he's also set to film Batman 2 in the early 2026, but the schedule seems to work out. Those aren't the only players to watch out for. Princess Irulan's father, the former Emperor Shaddam IV, is technically still alive and in exile. But as mentioned, it's doubtful the film will spend much time on him. Lady Margot Fenring, played by Elia Sado in Part 2, also doesn't figure into Messiah's story, so we'll likely won't see her again. And of course, the Harkonnens are wiped out and effectively gone for by now. Baron Harkonnen met his end in Dark Part 2, along with Fade and Lasu Raban. So Part 3 will shift focus away from the Harkonnen versus Atreides conflict and onto new conflicts facing Paul's new Imperial rule. It is looking to be quite a lineup, blending the established ensemble with fresh faces that will play crucial roles in the finale. As production continues, we may hear additional casting news. For example, if there's a Spacing Guild Navigator character or other conspirators, those might cast as well. But the core cast above paints a clear picture. Dune Part 3 will center on Paul, his family Chani, Ali and the twins, and a conspiracy of enemies represented by characters like Scytale and possibly Mohiam. With trusty allies like Stilgar and Duncan in the mix, it's the final act, so expect some incredible performances as these actors bring Herbert's intense endgame to life. Next, we'll talk about the behind the scenes. Behind the cameras, Dune Part 3 is pulling out all the stops to ensure the finale looks and sounds as breathtaking as its predecessors, if not more so. There are a few notable changes and updates in the production department worth mentioning. Firstly, cinematography. The first two films were shot by Oscar-winning DP Greg Fraser, who gave Dune a stunning, immersive visual style. For Part 3, however, scheduling conflicts, Fraser is busy shooting the Batman Part 2, meant Villeneuve needed a new cinematographer. Enter Linus Sandgren, another Academy Award-winning director of photography, known for films such as La La Land and First Man. Sandgren has a reputation for favoring traditional film stock, and that's exactly what's happening here. In a move that has cinephiles excited, Dune Part 3 is being shot on 65mm film, including 15% IMAX film formats. This is the first time that Dune series is using actual film instead of digital. The previous installments were filmed digitally and then formatted in IMAX. The decision makes sense. Denis Villeneuve has often expressed a love for the look of the film, and with Sandgren on board, they chose to take the plunge. Shooting on a large format film will give Part 3 a rich, organic visual texture. Expect the cinematography to have that tiny hint of film grain and even a grander scale in IMAX sequences. The team believes the 65mm film will add depth and warmth to the imagery that digital cameras can struggle to capture. Given how awe-inspired the landscapes of Dune already were, this could make Arrakis and other settings look more like an epic atmosphere location than anything else. It's part of a trend in Hollywood of returning to film for big projects, and Dune Part 3 is joining the ranks of recent 65mm shoots by auteurs like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino. Filming on location is another aspect of Dune's productions. Parts 1 and 2 famously shot the desert scenes in real-world deserts, like Wadi Rum in Jordan and the Rub al Khalil in Abu Dhabi, to authentically portray Arrakis. Part 3, the production began in Budapest's Origo Studios for sets and interior scenes, but we anticipate the crew will return to the deserts for exteriors as well. Though not officially confirmed yet, it's likely that later in 2025 the team will film in Jordan or similar locales to capture Arrakis' dune seas once again. In fact, the film on-set photo Villeneuve shared via Dune Twitter account showed sprawling dunes under a red sky, possibly an indoor set with special lighting or an early morning desert shot. Either way, the sandworms will surely wriggle again. Perhaps we'll even see Shai-Hulud appear symbolically as Paul faces his fate. On the music front, fans can rest assured Hans Zimmer is back to complete the trilogy score. Zimmer's works on the first two films, with booming drums, wailing vocals, and unique instrumentals, define the sonic identity of Villeneuve's Dune. By February 2024, Zimmer has confirmed to be scoring Part 3. So expect the soundtrack to reprise some themes and introduce new ones to match the film's darker tone. It's hard to imagine Dune without Zimmer's music. So this is great news that continually it will be maintained. Fun fact, Zimmer has said Dune was a passion project for him, being a fan of the book, so he likely had very invested himself in delivering a powerful film score. Another behind-the-scenes aspect, which will carry over hopefully, is the costume and production design. That should carry over excellence from the first two films. Don't be surprised if Part 3's designs take a slightly different turn to reflect the passage of time. For example, Paul's look as Emperor may evolve, perhaps more ornate uniforms are showing him visibly older or warier after 12 years. The Fremen might have new styles as they've integrated into an Imperial army, and we'll probably see a broader array of Imperial setting designs, possibly Paul's capital on Arrakis, and maybe glimpses of other worlds affected by his rule. The crew hasn't spilled details yet, but given the team's track record, the world building will remain top-notch. One change already known is that Part 3 will be the last Dune film directed by Denis Villeneuve, completing his vision. He's described this movie as the conclusion of Paul's arc and said continuing beyond into Herbert's later movies will become unhealthy for him as a storyteller. That suggests he's putting all his creative energy into making sure this finale is satisfying and definitive. It's worth noting that the Dune franchise itself might not end here. There are other books like God Emperor of Dune, etc., and Legendary Television developing spin-offs, which we have in the form of Dune Prophecy, which aired in 2024 on HBO. But those are separate endeavors. Dune Part 3 is being crafted as a culmination of the saga we started with Paul Atreides in 2021. As of mid-2025, filming is well underway. Budapest has been a hive of activity with the cast. Zendaya and Anya Taylor-Joy even caused a buzz when they were spotted out together in the city, a sighting that practically confirmed Anya's involvement as Aaliyah before any press release did. Other stars like Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh have also been seen in Hungary for production, and local reports caught wind of Jason Momoa arriving with his son. Casting news travels fast, they say. The enthusiasm on set seems high. Josh Brolin, after visiting the set, praised the script as super good and noted how excited the Warner Brothers executives are for what they're seeing, describing the reaction as visceral. That's an encouraging sign and suggests Part 3 is delivering jaw-dropping moments even in raw form. Looking ahead, keep an eye out in 2026 for their marketing ramp-up. If history repeats, we might get a teaser trailer about a year before release, perhaps late 2025, and a full trailer a few months into 2026. The news is very secretive, but no doubt the eventual footage will showcase the high stakes and spectacle we might see glimpses of. An older Paul, in regal attire, and adult Aaliyah confronting enemies, perhaps our first look at Pattinson, if confirmed, in an eerie face dancer guise, and of course the cultural grandeur of the Imperial Arrakis. One more piece of information is that Villeneuve chose to film Part 3 entirely in IMAX format for certain sequences, reportedly even more extensively than Part 2. In fact, it's been reported that this will be the first Villeneuve film shot on photochemical film since 2010's Incendies, representing a creative departure. Also, whereas Part 1 and Part 2 used a mix of digital and some IMAX digital cameras, Part 3 using actual IMAX 65mm means those scenes will fill the giant screen with incredible clarity. So if you have an IMAX theater nearby,
that will be the way to experience the finale. Lastly, the team behind Dune has always been meticulous with practical effects and real sets combined with CGI. We expect the same level of detail here, whether it's constructing the grand throne room of Paul's palace or depicting a massive crowd of Fremen pilgrims. The production design and VFX will serve Villeneuve's realistic style. We might see new creatures or technology too. For example, Messiah introduces stone burner weapons, nuclear bombs, and guild navigators in person. If those appear, the effects team will have exciting challenges, given that Part 1 and Part 2 won multiple Oscars, visual effects, sound, cinematography, etc. Part 3 has a high bar to clear. But all signs indicate the crew is going even further for this chapter. In short, behind the scenes of Dune Part 3, we're seeing bold creative choices, like shooting on IMAX film, a mix of fresh talent and returning crew, and a production in full swing to deliver a grand finale. Everything is lined up for Villeneuve to cap off the trilogy in a spectacular fashion on December 18th, 2026. As we've explored, Dune Part 3 is shaping up to be a truly monumental finish to a modern science fiction classic. The stage is set for an intense and emotional charged story, Paul Atreides at the height of his power, yet on the brink of a personal and political crisis. We'll have characters returning, some in unexpected ways, and new characters emerging to challenge him, and a narrative that dares to venture into darker, thought-provoking territory. Denis Villeneuve is pulling from one of Frank Herbert's most poignant novels to craft a finale that will likely leave us with plenty to ponder. From a production standpoint, the film is in excellent hands. The director's passion is evident, the cast is stellar, and the technical choices, like the switch from 65mm film and IMAX, promise a one-of-a-kind cinematic experience. It's also clear that everyone involved intends for Part 3 to be the crowning achievement of the trilogy, tying up the saga that began with Paul's vision of a desert girl and now concludes with the fate of an empire. Villeneuve has described this finale as a tragedy and a cautionary tale rather than a simple, happy ending, which means we're likely in for some powerful, possibly heart-wrenching moments. But that's exactly what should make the story resonate and linger in our minds. So mark your calendars for December 18th, 2026, when the sands of Arrakis will stir once more. We anticipate a film that delivers both spectacle, towering sandworms, sweeping battles in the shadows of history, and the grand visuals of an imperial Arrakis, and substance, philosophical depths, and character payoffs that have been years in the making. Will Paul Atreides triumph over his foes and his fate, or will he become a cautionary legend as Herbert intended? That question is what makes Dune Part 3 so compelling. Even fans of the books are eager to see how Villeneuve interprets this ending and whether any surprises are in store. One thing is certain, this film is poised to be one of the most anticipated releases of 2026. It represents the culmination of nearly a decade's worth of work since Villeneuve started on his Dune journey, and a lifelong journey or dream for the filmmakers and cast to bring this epic story to the fitting conclusion. For audiences, it's the final chapter in a cinematic journey through spice-laden deserts, political intrigue, and prophetic visions that have kept us riveted. So as we conclude our deep dive, the hype meters are officially off the charts. Whether you're most excited to see Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya share the screen as Paul and Chani in their final trial, or to witness Anya Taylor-Joy's portrayal of the uncanny Alia, or simply to soak in Villeneuve's grand world building one last time, there's plenty to look forward to. Prepare to be amazed and emotionally challenged. Dune Part 3 aims to deliver a finale that's worthy of a legend. Until then, we'll be eagerly awaiting more news, maybe a teaser of Paul standing amidst the dunes as the sun sets on his empire. The desert saga of House Atreides is nearing its end, and it's bound to be a cinematic event for the ages. And with the current release of the video game Dune Awakening and another season of Dune Prophecy on the way, the Dune universe is extremely hyped right now. Although hopefully that hype will continue with the onset of Dune Part 3 on the horizon. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about Dune Part 3 and other Dune-related projects? If you are, I am too, and I will see you guys next time.